The retirement crisis is here. Look out below. No one can retire. We're all going to run out of money. Oh, my goodness. It's so silly. Anyway, there is no retirement crisis. There isn't any. Do some people have a retirement crisis? Yes. Yes. There's always going to be the poor. Jesus said it. Jesus himself. The poor will be with us. The vast majority of people are not facing a retirement crisis. No matter what the media, the witches brew, the cauldrons of the wherever the witches and the financial media and the academia, all these guys, the insurance companies, investment companies, wherever they get together, and what's that one that all the politicians go to in California? I forgot what it's called, but there's some these kind of meetings of people who've got ulterior motives. Whatever they brew up, they're just wrong, dude. And yet people take it for like it's freaking sacrosanct. We're going to start. I got lots of stuff, so stay tuned. Lots of data sets to show you. It's going to be a lot of fun. Kaiser Foundation here. Income and assets of Medicare beneficiaries in 2023. All right, so this brief examines the income and assets and home equity of Medicare beneficiaries overall and by age, race, ethnicity, and gender using dynamic this dynamism study. All right. The methods are good. Actually, I like the methods. So I was pretty happy to see that. So we're going to see right here. Estimates of income take into account Social Security, pension, other income sources to include IRA distributions. All right, so remember the reason the Social Security Administration got rid of using the current population survey from the census in their identification of income relative to Social Security recipients, it was because the data was so skewed that we couldn't trust it, and they haven't replaced it yet. You don't need to know that, but I'm just telling you right now. The CPS, which a lot of analysis have been using, is just wrong. It doesn't take into consideration IRA withdrawals very well at all. It's just completely, it's just not right. So even the Social Security Administration acknowledged that. And a couple of years back, they said we're not going to use this anymore. The interesting thing is notice, you don't have to read this whole thing, but they don't talk about transfer payments. And one of the things I found interesting, so this is Charles Murray being interviewed by John Stossel. And Charles Murray had written a book along with another guy called The Bell Curve, right? Everyone hates Charles Murray because those people just aren't that bright. But Charles Murray said, even in here, he said, talk about the poverty ratio and whatnot. And he said, every time I talk about this, I get pointed out that the poverty ratio does not include transfer payments, non-cash transfer payments, Section 8 housing, Medicaid, and whatnot like that. AFDC, WIC, the whole thing. And it doesn't. So poverty rates don't include those transfer payments that poorer people get, which inherently would mean there's less people under the poverty line. Charles Murray would say, well, that's, we're just trying to get a gauge of how many people are not in poverty based on their own resources. Okay, I get that. But either way, when we're talking about income and we're not talking about transfer payments, non-cash transfer payments, or even in this case, it could be cash transfer payments via just SSI and whatnot. I think that's suspect. You know what I'm saying? So it's always suspect on the negative side. It's never optimistic on the positive side. But either way, we're going to still go with it because there's still a lot of great data in here. All right, so I was very comfortable with with how they did their survey. Again, not taking transfer payments, but I think it's pretty good. Anyway, so 1 in 4 Medicare beneficiaries lived on incomes below $21,000 per person. 1 in 4. 25% lived on incomes. Again, we're not talking transfer payments. So if you're poor, you're going to have some cash transfer payments and some non-cash transfer payments. Non-cash would be Section 8 housing, things of this nature, which means you don't have to pay rent. That means you don't have to have as much income if you don't have rent. How do we know this? Because you don't have to have as much income if you don't have a mortgage to basically support your rent and mortgage. And remember, this is per person. Well, half lived on incomes below $36,000 per person. All right. So that means 25% lived on incomes between $21,000 and $36,000. That's $3,000 a month, dudes. Even if it's $2,500 a month per person now. Even if it's $2,500 a month per person, you know what that means? That's $30,000 a year. All right. And then 50% lived on more than $3,000 a month per person. Because again, I keep emphasizing not per household, per person. More than 50% of people on Medicare, the vast majority of retirees, by the way, are living on more than $3,000 a month per person. Isn't that interesting? In fact, here, this is from the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics right here. And it just says right there, average, let's see. See where it says 1.7. Average number in consumer use unit, basically household. People over the age of 65, the average number in a household is 1.7, which means the vast majority of retirees are married. 2 people live cheaper than 1 person. That's just a fact. Every economist will know that. It's less expensive for Josh and Charlotte to live under one household than it would be for single Josh or single Josh and single Charlotte spend more on housing arrangements than Josh and Charlotte as a married couple. And yet we know that the vast majority of retirees are living as married couples. So this per person would be double that essentially for the vast majority, for retirees. So again, while half lived on incomes below $36,000, we're going to make that a household. That means half lived on incomes above $72,000. Pretty interesting. And then we just go back to this thing as well, and this again for the BLS, and we're going to say housing tenure. 77% of people 65 and older, essentially the same people as what we're looking at for the Kaiser thing, because you have to be 65 to be on Medicare, unless you're disabled. 77% were homeowners, with 52% of that 77% being without a mortgage. All right, so basically we take 77% times by 0.52, 0.77 times 0.52. That means 40% of people over the age of 65 own their homes outright, 40%. And we only had 23% were renters. And this is going to be important as we go into this, because again, Kaiser is going to paint a negative thing on this. 1 in 4 Medicare beneficiaries had savings below $17,000 per person. That means 25% had savings below $17,000. Well, half had savings below $103,000 per person, which means 25% had savings between basically $17,000 and $103,000 per person. As with income, median savings declined with age among those 65 and older. Shocking. I mean, you're spending down your assets. That's why you saved it. Just spend it. I don't know why they want to be shocked by that. Blacks only had 22,000, Spanish 20,000, but whites had 158. Well, there's a simple answer to that solution to make sure the blacks get and stayed married. And sadly, the blacks just don't. It's just sad. Everybody knows this. And it's not racist to point out. We've been pointing this out for freaking decades. And more whites are not getting married too, by the way. Daniel Patrick Moynihan talked about it, defining DVC down, i.e. Unmarried couple, single mother households raising children. That's what it is. The more single households with mothers raising children, the more poverty is going to be. It's just a fact. The society needs a husband and a wife. That's just a fact. If you want to unsubscribe, be all my guest. I don't want you here if you don't understand that, because that's just basic common sense, basic facts. It is easier for a married couple to have more assets because it's cheaper for a married couple to live in a house than it is for 2 single people. Never mind raising your sons, raising your daughters with a husband, with a dad, and a mom in there too. But either way, that still means 50% of the population had savings over $103,000. 75% of the population had savings over $17,000. 1 in 4 Medicare beneficiaries had no equity at all in 2023. Well, that's weird, because we go back to this again from the BLS Consumer Expenditure Survey, and we see renters were 23%. Does a renter have equity? No. Shocking. So 1 in 4 had no equity. Well, that's because they rent. Well, half of all Medicare beneficiaries had home equity below $124,000 per person. So that means we don't know what that is. That 75? What's the median? We don't know. All we know is half of Medicare beneficiaries had home equity above $125,000 per person. Half had below $125,000 per person. What does that tell you? That means there's a lot of equities going out there for sure. Because if only 25% of the people had no equity at all, and 25% of the people had some equity, that means they had some equity. We don't know what the median is of that great, but that's a lot of equity, $125,000 per person. More than 1 in 5 Black and Hispanic beneficiaries had no savings or were in debt, which means 4 in 5 Black and Hispanics had savings or were not in debt. Okay, but we're going to focus on the 1 in 5. That's 20%. Compared to fewer than 1 in 10 white beneficiaries. I like how they capitalize everything, by the way. Nearly half of all Black and Hispanics beneficiaries had no home equity compared to 1 in 5, because I can guarantee you Blacks and Hispanics rent more than whites do. That's just a fact. All right, so let's keep going down here. And again, here's their chart. 25% had incomes below $21,000, which meant 50% had incomes below $36,000 per person. Per person, I cannot stress this enough. You have $2,500 a month in Social Security. That's $30,000 a year. That ain't too shabby if you have no debt. That ain't too shabby if you're getting SSI, or not SSI, but other sorts of transfer payments. Are you living large? No. But that means also 50% of those people had more than that. And that's per person. All right, let's keep going. Let's see here. Among Medicare beneficiaries, median income declined with age from $70,000 roughly between 65 and 74 to basically $30,000 when you're over 80 years old. That's per capita. Per capita had $58,000. The median had $28,000 per person. If we're married, and about, I think it was 77% of retirees are married, that's $56,000 at 85 years old. Without that much debt, by the way. A lot of these people don't have any debt. So we want to focus on the negative. This is what got us to the stupid Obamacare to begin with. We destroyed health insurance because there's a group, it's not a sizable group, but not anywhere near even 0.25%, but a decent-sized population that wasn't getting insured pre-existing conditions. So we blew up the whole thing to take care of these about 15% of the population that wasn't able to qualify for health care insurance before Medicare. So we basically sacrificed 85 to help the 15, and ironically enough, it didn't even help the 15 that much. We still have tons of people who are uninsured. That's just a fact. Let's keep going. Roughly 1 in 10 Medicare beneficiaries was under the age of 65. They're eligible for Medicare because of disability. And they also have the lowest median per capita income of any group. So if we take those people out of the equation and we just focus on retirees, I mean, these guys are retired too, but I'm saying over 65, what's that going to do? It's going to skew this higher. Because the bulk of these people are going to be the ones under 65 years old, all right, because they have disability. All right, let's keep going. Shocking. Married beneficiaries had higher median per capita income than beneficiaries who are widowed, divorced, or single. So here's widows. That's we've talked about that a million times on my YouTube channel. You lose one Social Security. Here's divorce, basically the same thing. And here's single. So being married, dude. You want to be financially secure, you just get married. It's just that simple. It's just all there is to it. Spouses or ex-spouses for marriage longer than 10 years can opt to receive half of their spouse's Social Security benefit in lieu of the benefit based on their own earnings, which may offer greater flexibility, but they also get the survivor benefit too. I'm surprised they don't say anything about that. Median per capita income rose with educational attainment. I don't think anyone denies that. Again, the point being, as we talk about the education, proves that you need a college degree. They're lumping in all the medical doctors, all the PhDs, with some guy who's got a degree from freaking Trump University and freaking, penmanship or something like that. See what I'm saying? So that skews the degree, because they're saying, okay, here's the bulk of the people with college degrees are over here, but we have a number of people who make huge amounts of earnings over here, and that skews the average to validate the need for a college degree. Let's see. And look, only 1 in 3 white beneficiaries held a college degree. What? In 2018, compared to 12 and 13% of Black and Hispanics. And now we're starting to see more and more white men not going to college because we're not wanted. They don't want us in college. That's just a fact. So that's good. I'm glad more and more white men have said, I'm not getting listen to DEI. I'll go learn a trade, 100%. Now we're going to talk about savings. Half had savings below 103. And remember, Medicare beneficiaries. Remember what we talked about. 11%, where was it here? 11% were under the age of 65 because of disability. So those are going to be right in here, the 11%, because they're young, all right? Now, I wish they would take that out, but they can't because they want to put this fear on this. We have $103,000. 50% of the population has savings of $103,000 per person. 1 in 10 had no savings or were in debt. I can almost guarantee you almost all those people were the disability people. So again, they want to make this seem negative, but it's just not negative. It's just not in the least. Because especially when it comes to retirees, man. When it comes to retirees, it's not negative at all. So here's our per capita savings. If you're over the age of 65, $120,000 per person per capita. Look at that. If you're 65 to 74, 145, 75 to 84, 104, 85 and older, 44. It drops. Shocking. It should. Just spending your money. Once again, married beneficiaries had median per capita savings of about $170,000. That was more than twice as high as among beneficiaries who are widowed or divorced. Well, one of the reasons to say they're widows is because they're probably older, man. Like we just see right here. The older they get, the less savings you have. Widows most likely are going to be older than just young freaking, Joe Buck there who just graduated, who just retired at 65. So widows and divorcees have less. Well, divorcees are probably younger. Widows are probably older. And yet married is always going to be more because, again, it's easier to have one household with two incomes, one Social Security or two Social Securities or whatnot. And they had more than 6 times higher among those beneficiaries who are single. So I guarantee you get rid of disabled people because they aren't real retirees in terms of 65 years old. And you say, okay, what's the one way we can make people have more money? It's to get married and stay married. Shocking. But we don't want to do that because it takes away our ability to say it's racism or our ability to say capitalism sucks. Home equity. Half of all Medicare beneficiaries had home equity below 124. Now, you think about the median house right here. Let's see if I got this on here. This is from 2021 and 2022. Let's see if we got the median value of a home here. I think I do. So estimated market value of owned home is $300,000. All right. Estimated, that's for people 65 and older again. All right, so here we got half of all Medicare beneficiaries had home equity below 124. All right, so if you take husband and wife, that's $250,000 of home equity, and the estimated market value of the homes for people 65 and older was $301,000. Now, if you're single, you probably don't have as much. I don't think anyone should be shocked by that. But even this is $124 per person, and yet they're going to make it seem like it's no big. It's like this is horrible. 26% had no home equity, because 23% of the population of 65 and older is renters. So 3% of homeowners essentially has no home equity. That shouldn't shock anybody. It's not that big of a deal. Median home equity rises with age. Shocking. But it's much lower for Black and Hispanics beneficiaries and beneficiaries under the age of 65. Well, if it rises with age, then we can cancel that right there. Beneficiaries under 65, i.e. The long-term disability people. And why is it much lower for Blacks and Hispanics? Probably because they rent more than whites do. And they don't talk about Asians in here because, how dare you? You can't put Asians and Indians in there because that would skew the whole thing of making this a racial thing. Let's see here. Median home per capita, per person home equity, if you're age 85 and older, was $174,000. So median per capita was $132,000 if you're 65 to 74, but it's $174,000 if you're over 80. So what does that tell you? That's not a retirement crisis. Why? Because their home equity is growing and growing and growing. And they're not selling, and we know for a fact the vast majority of people who are 65 and older own their homes, and a significant portion of those, the majority of those people, 52% of the homeowners actually own their homes outright. So they're not tapping into their equity at all. Now, they might be spending down their assets, but they're not tapping this. So they're definitely not running out of money here, or at least net worth, that's for sure. Why did that happen as people age? Because a larger share of homeowners who had reduced or paid off mortgage debt and they're older as they get older. I'm shocked. The majority of married and widowed beneficiaries were homeowners, with median per capita home equity of $145,000 and $209,000 respectively. So the majority of married beneficiaries were homeowners, and they had a lower median equity than widowed because widows are older. They're older. Grandpa Jones just died at 86 years old, leaving Grandma Smith as a widow at 84 years old, which is going to be older than freaking Joe Buck and Jane Buck, who just retired at 65. Single beneficiaries had the lowest rate of home ownership. 63% had no home equity. Well, why? Because by contract, median per capita home equity among divorce beneficiaries were $53,000 and 41% were not homeowners. So what does that say? 59% were, compared to 77% for the people who are over the age of 65. Single beneficiaries had the lowest rate of home ownership. They don't say how many, but 63% had no home equity because I guarantee the vast majority of those people rent. All right, so that's the Kaiser thing. Let me show you this other stuff. It's going to get even more fun here. We're going to look at this study that my man, who sent this to me? Lynn sent this to me here. Report on the economic well-being of U.S. households in 2019. This is from the Federal Reserve. And it's a couple years old. It's not valid. It is valid. I'm going to show you why. Here we got 63% of respondents rated their local economic conditions as good or excellent in 2019. And only the rest rating it conditions as poor is only fair. All right, so very hard to imagine you're going to rate your the local economic conditions as good or excellent if you're going bankrupt. Let's keep going. Back again. 85% of people who are over the age of 60 own their homes, whereas only 26% of this group did. 58% of this group did. I'm in this group. 75% of us did. So who? Again, the vast majority of people who are retired own their own homes. All right, and the majority of those people own their homes without any mortgage whatsoever. And the vast majority, as they get older, have significant equity built in. This is not a retirement crisis. Sources of income in the past 12 months. So for retirees, 65 and older, 93% had Social Security, 68% had a pension. Now, a pension includes defined benefit plan, your typical old school pension, where you get a monthly check every month, and defined contribution plan. So either they had a defined benefit plan or defined contribution. Actually, if memory serves, the defined contribution was 2 or 3 times as prevalent as the defined benefit plan. But either way, 68% of retirees, this is from the Federal Reserve survey. I can't remember how many people they surveyed, but it was a significant survey. 68, more than 2/3 of the people that they surveyed had sources of income outside of just Social Security. Almost 50% had interest, dividends, or rents. 25% still had salary, self-employment, and then 4% had cash transfers other than Social Security. Cash transfers being welfare. Isn't that interesting? Ironically, all retirees, these retirees age 65 and older, these would be even people younger, 8% had cash transfers other than Social Security, but that fell by 50% once you hit 65. How ironic. That's kind of weird. How is that happening? I don't know. Just shows you that there is no retirement crisis. If all retirees had 8% had cash transfers other than Social Security, and yet half of this is high once you hit 65. Kind of crazy. All right, so retirement savings and self-assessed preparedness by age. This kind of pissed me off, pardon my French. So any retirement savings. So people who are 60 plus, 88% of people 60 plus had some kind of retirement savings. But those same people, only 51% said their retirement savings was on track. 62% of people 18 to 29 had some sort of retirement savings, but only 29% said they're on track. Dude, if you're 25 years old and you got some kind of retirement savings, you're on track, man. Look at this. So what happens is the younger you are, the less you think you're on track. The older you get, the more you think you're on track. However, only the best, just over half of the people thought they were on track who are 60 plus. It's crazy. 88% of people over the age of 60 had some kind of retirement savings, and yet only 50% of them thought they were on track. It's crazy. So let's talk about this. At least okay financially if you're involuntarily laid off or you're voluntarily quit. You're retired or not, all right? So you say, I'm out of here. So these are people who are no longer working. If you have a high school degree or less and you're involuntarily kicked out of your job, still 57% of the people said they were still okay financially. If you had a combination that you quit and you kind of said, I don't want to work anyway, 69%. This is people with a high school degree or less. 90% of the people who left work on their own with a high school degree or less said they're still okay financially. 94% with some college or associate degree, and even those who are involuntarily separated, 64% said they're okay financially. 87% of people with bachelor's degrees said even if they're involuntarily separated, said they were still okay financially. There's no crisis there. This is among retirees, by the way, among retirees. That's not a crisis. Retirees, 55% who had bachelor's degrees, 50% with an associate degree, and 50% with a high school degree or less retired at 61 or earlier. Isn't that nuts? Isn't that nuts? Only 24% of high school degree people retired beyond 65. 24% was a technical school or college or a community college, and 26% who had a bachelor's degree. So 61 or earlier, the majority of people retired. 51% retired at 61 or earlier. Going back to this number, among retirees, the worst case scenario is people with a high school diploma or less who are involuntarily let go. Even 57% of those people still said they were okay. That's not a retirement crisis. We talk about family income sources in terms of wages. We talk about Social Security. This is for everybody, not just retirees. But check this out. Receiving and providing financial support outside of home. So if you're 18 to 24, 38% of you were receiving financial support, where 10% of you were giving financial support. If you're 60 or over, only 3% of you were receiving financial support, where 18% of you were providing it. These are retirees. This isn't all retirees, but if you're 60 or over, only 3% were receiving financial support outside the home, where 18% were providing it. You're not running out of money if you're not only not receiving financial support, but you're providing it, which is the most other than this group right here, which is my group because I have kids to financially support. The older you get, the less financial support you receive, as you can see right there. Basically, the older you get, the more you provide financial support. How could that possibly be a retirement crisis? Income distribution, notice it's not, it's all families, not just retirees, but notice it only includes cash income, wages and things like that. All right, not other sources of income that we talk about, non-transfers. But look at this, right here, $50,000 to $75,000. That's the highest right there, 15%. We got 11% at 75 to 100, and 14% at 100 to 149,000. The family income. So you could say it's a household. But we'll check this out. 15 plus 8 is 23, 33, 40, 47, 53. About 60% of the population has income less than $75,000. And I already showed you that the vast majority of people are doing okay, at the least okay. We're not talking super heavy hitters here. Only 7% of the population had income over $200,000. These aren't the wealthiest of the wealthy. This basic right here is probably going to be your median right there. And that's why I tell people all the time. I said, if you got no debt, $5,000 to $6,000 a month. That doesn't include your health insurance or anything like that. It's probably, it might actually, but usually $5,000, $6,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month is kind of what you're shooting for in terms of how much income do you need to get by in retirement. If you have no debt, if you have debt, it's different. But if you got no debt, I'm telling you, man, how do we know this? Because look, 60% of the population has income below $75,000. That's with taxes. $6,000 a month is $72,000. And if you're retired, the tax on that is going to be minimal at best. At worst, I should say. It might not be anything. This is not evidence. We've looked at 3 different data sets. The BLS surveys, the Fed surveys, the Kaiser survey. In no way is this any evidence of a retirement crisis at all. It's all fake. It's all fake. Tell these guys to put it where the sun doesn't shine and say, give me some real data of why you think there's a retirement crisis. What is it? What's the real data? Well, we don't have pensions anymore. Let me show you something there that cracked me up too. Check this out. Group called the Alliance for Lifetime Income, and the chief strategy officer said, like pensions did for past generations, annuities offer a unique opportunity to have peace of mind knowing they'll have a source of guaranteed income in retirement. And pensions did not do that, as I harked or whatever it is, and I'll continue to do so. Jason Fichtner, executive director of the Alliance for Retirement Income, these guys want to push annuities on us. And I'm not an anti-annuity guy. I like annuities, but come on, man. Unlike older retired baby boomers, the majority of peak 65ers don't have pensions. Well, the majority of baby boomers did not have pensions either. You're saying stuff that simply did not exist. It did not exist. You can read the congressional testimony, which I did. I read the whole thing. It's dire on how bad it was back then for people without a pension. NBC did this whole story on it, which really turned the tide in favor of ERISA. This is back when there used to be good reporting in the media, man. They reported the truth. That's just a fact. And the truth was that the majority of baby boomers did not have pensions. I'm sorry. Or they weren't receiving pensions. We could put it like that. We know they didn't have pensions, first and foremost. We know the vast majority were not receiving pensions. And it's just a fact, man. They weren't getting, and even the pensions that some were getting, a lot of those were not very high. Anyway, there is no retirement crisis. Does that mean you go light cigars with $100 bills? No, but I got a guy emailed me just right now. He said, I got $1.1 million in my account. I'm sick of my job, and I need about $55,000 a year to live on. And I'm like, what? And he said, I know I can't retire until I'm 67. I can't remember. He's like 61 or something like that. So for the life of me, I don't get how you can't retire. I'm confused. Why? He goes, well, I don't know. I said, well, that's what I'm here to do, is to help you figure that out. But some people don't want to part with their money. And look, it's fine, I get it. But I'm just like, it seems like that'd be money well spent to me. But whatever, people got to do what they got to do. But I was like, dude, you got over $1 million. You spend about $55,000 a year, and a Social Security will just say that's $30,000 a year at the bare minimum. It's only $2,500 a month. I mean, there's no way you only get $2,500 a month in Social Security if you accumulated 1.1 million or whatever the hell you had. I was like, come on now. It's nuts. But let's just say it's $2,500 a month. That's $30,000 a year. That goes over 60% of his total expenditures right there, roughly. That means he needs 40% of that $55,000 from his $1.1 million account. What? It's like, you think you can't retire? I don't know. It was crazy. People are just so inundated with this negativity. I hate it. All right, that's a long video. Hope you stayed tuned for it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. God bless. We'll see you.